What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Arkansas headed to Omaha, headed to the College World Series for the 12th time in program history by virtue of an 11-4 win over Tennessee yesterday. And I guess we're still waiting for one more between Duke and Murray State, and then we'll find out all the times. Looking like Arkansas is going to be Saturday, either 1 or 6. Probably ESPN, I guess. But we'll find out the times, I guess, tonight. And Arkansas also had a big visit weekend for recruiting, and we'll talk to Danny West about that. We're going to get Kevin Bohannon on here first. All that and more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. Before we get started, I want to mention this because we're doing a 60% off sale right now at HawgSports, HAWG Sports, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. For those of you not familiar with our special, it saves you $76.44. Okay, for the entire year. It breaks down to 12 cents a day, 83 cents a week, $358 a month, and billed it just at $42.96 for the entire year. This offer ends on the 10th. It ends tomorrow at 11 o'clock Central Daylight Time. Okay, so that's Tuesday, the 10th. Okay, so sign up at HawgSports, HAWG Sports, the number one independent source on Arkansas sports and recruiting. Get unmatched insider Razorback coverage. Again, $358 a month is basically what it breaks down to. $42.96 for the entire year. No promo code or anything. Just go to HawgSports, HAWGsports.com and sign up. Plenty of ways to watch and listen to the show. We're streaming live on X, on YouTube, and on Facebook right now. If you haven't taken a moment to give us a like or a thumbs up on any of those platforms, we certainly appreciate it. Leave your comments. We'd love to have you do that. Subscribe to the page if you haven't done so already. Hit the subscribe button and set it to where you're notified anytime we upload new videos. And give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done that either. Would love to have that from you. Okay, so pretty wild. Logan Maxwell, grand slam in the fourth inning. Bases loaded, obviously. What did that put Arkansas up? 7-1 at the time. Arkansas ended up winning 11-4. Just a tremendous environment at Baum Walker all weekend. I mean, through the whole thing, through the regional, through the super regional. Arkansas goes 5-1. Really exciting. Does Arkansas have the chance to win it all? I mean, they're the highest seed left right now. We're going to bring Kevin in to talk about it more in depth because he's the expert on all that. But Arkansas is the highest seed remaining. It brings me to the question, like, only one team has won the College World Series who's been a number one overall seed. Like 75% of the time, the one seeds in the regional make up like the field in the College World Series. But once you get to Omaha, the best team almost always doesn't win. Now, obviously, the best teams, Vanderbilt was number one overall seed. It has no chance to win because they didn't advance. Arkansas is the highest seed at number 3. I think LSU is, 6 or 8, something like that. And then there's a couple other in the field. But should Arkansas, should the NCAA reseed like the NFL does for the playoffs once you get to Omaha? Should they reseed the tournament? Because Arkansas is playing LSU, which is the next highest seed. Which is fine. I was talking to Danny West about it earlier. He's like, bring it on. I want all of them. So we'll talk to Danny in a little bit too, because Danny's obviously Arkansas had a big recruiting weekend. There wasn't any commitments out of the weekend, but there was a lot of key players coming in. It's camp season on the 11th. I believe it's a lineman camp. And then the next series of camps, you've got high school camps, individual high school camps, all 3 days. And then you have another camp, I believe, on the 18th, which is maybe another lineman camp, I believe. They had a skills camp over the weekend. So, all right, Kevin has joined us now. So we're going to go ahead and welcome Kevin in to talk about everything that's happened so far. Kevin, exciting times, my friend.
It is. For the first time in 3 years, we get to go back to baseball's Emerald City. It's a lot of nostalgia, and I've been to, 3 College World Series so far. I went in 09, 12, and then again in 2018. So it always brings back a lot of memories with a lot of players, and there are some links between this year's team and some of the past, and you can't help but think that with the field the way it is, they have a shot.
Yeah, I mean, what a lot of people are saying, like if Arkansas doesn't win it now, then when? With the team that they have, with the way things, the dominoes have fallen and everything. Hey, I wanted to ask you, Kevin, what you think. So the way I mean, I think most people are familiar who are interested in baseball, but it's a double elimination. Basically, you got to win 4 games
Right.
to make it to the championship, but you can only lose one. You can't lose twice. But Arkansas opens with LSU, who's the next highest seed in the tournament. Do you think that they should reseed this tournament? Because again, yes, one seeds usually are going to make it to the College World Series. I think the stat is like 75% of the time. But once they get there, the best teams very rarely win.
Right.
Right. Do you think that they should reseed it and make it a little bit more rewarding for the teams that put the body of work together to make it to Omaha?
I do. And the College World Series is just a regional and a super regional played over again. That's what it is. It's spread out over the course of 2 weeks. But I am a proponent of reseeding. And that's not just because of this year. It's every year. You've seen some really good first-round matchups and teams that Arkansas and LSU are the 2 highest seeded teams left, and they're matching up in the first round. That is nothing against Coastal Carolina or Arizona, who I picked to at least get to a super regional because in my preseason prediction had Arkansas beating Arizona in a super regional. So, UCLA, it's a different brand of baseball on the left coast out there, but it's not the SEC. It's not in the southeastern part of the United States where you're getting most of your All-Americans from. When a team like Coastal Carolina can run through the Sun Belt and then run through their regional. I'm excited to see some of these teams. There's a lot of good storylines. It's not a deep field. Last year you had 4 SEC and 4 ACC teams, and it was remarkably possibly one of the best fields ever, as far as overall talent, first-round draft picks that are coming out. But there will be some good storylines. But national media, everybody that covers the Hogs, follows the Hogs, they're pointing to their best shot is right now.
Kevin Bohannon joining us. To read all of his content, you need to go to HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. Yeah, not a lot of SEC flavor. Obviously, Arkansas and LSU. Auburn lost to Coastal, but not a lot of SEC flavor in this year's tournament. And as you mentioned, maybe not as strong a field as we've seen in the past, but again, if not now for Arkansas, when? Arkansas is the 3 overall seed, and I mean, it feels like things are shaping up, right?
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and we've talked about it on this show, and I've talked about it in a lot of the articles that I've written and then on our message board. Look, there's 3 things you need. You need to be able to score runs in different ways, especially when you get to Charles Schwab Field. The place is a boneyard. You're not going to hit 10 home runs in a weekend like you did at Ballmarker Stadium in the regional. You need to have at least 10 pitchers that need to go out there and get you 6 to 9 outs. Arkansas has shown that over the past 2 weekends. They got guys that can go out there and get outs and then be stretched out. And then the third thing, you got to have a little luck on your side. You got to be healthy. That goes into the luck category. For the most part, they are healthy. There was a good report on Aiden Jimenez yesterday. There wasn't anything majorly wrong with him, nor Gage Wood. I know he came out after 48 pitches. Nothing wrong with him. So without Carson Wiggins and Nolan Sousa being there, everybody else should be 100% when they make the Omaha on Wednesday. And part of the luck is the field lining up right for you. That's the most important thing right there. Like at some point you got to beat these top teams. You obviously wouldn't want to have them line up in order and just roll right through them. But the best 2 offensive teams in the tournament left are Arkansas and LSU. Tennessee was, probably the best offensive team that Arkansas has played this year. Arkansas took care of them this weekend. So now you just have to get ready for Cade Anderson, Jared Jones and company. And they're called the powerhouse for a reason. They dominated the 90s and early 2000s with Skip Bertman and Paul Maneri, and now you get to see that played out on the big stage.
Yeah, so obviously we're expecting Zach Root for Arkansas, Cade Anderson, LSU. What do you know about Anderson?
First-round pick. He has the stuff. I think his best baseball is in front of him, obviously. He's kind of thin, wiry guy, but he's got the frame. He's got broad shoulders. He's going to put on 15, 20 pounds of muscle as he gets more into his, peak years and his prime years. So the best baseball's in front of him. But at this point, I like him better than I do Liam Doyle. Anderson doesn't pitch with much as motion as Doyle does. And you saw that this weekend and over the past 2 years. when Arkansas has faced Liam Doyle. He just kind of, he can implode at times. Cade Anderson's more collected. He's more methodical with his approach, and Arkansas had a tough time with him last in Baton Rouge. So they're going to have a game plan. Nate Thompson, Bobby Wernis did a great job this weekend of how they attacked Marcus Phillips, how they attacked the bullpen, and how they went after Liam Doyle yesterday. They made him work. They knew him with him coming off of short rest. It was going to be, he only had so many pitches he can throw. If they can take that same approach into Cade Anderson, they're not going to be able to get the ball out of the ballpark, like I mentioned. So they're going to have to produce runs in a couple of different ways.
Arkansas started off so strong, and really not just started off, but just carried it for so long, and then it got a little choppy and stuff, and looked like maybe that they had peaked and fallen off. And then is this just vintage Dave Van Horn getting these guys to kind of re-peak, I guess, right at the right time?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I answered in the preseason. Forget who I was talking to. It might have been our cohort over at Vanderbilt 24/7. He said, why are Dave Van Horn teams so good? And I said, it's consistency. It's the consistency in terms of how he holds his coaching staff accountable, how he holds his players accountable. They let the players police themselves. There's always good chemistry in that dugout and in that locker room. And when there's not, they don't make it as far, especially in the portal era. And the three guys that were sitting on the dais yesterday in the post-game press conference, Charles Davalon, Cam Kojal, and Logan Maxwell, all came from the portal this past year. It is a piece of masterwork. It's a masterpiece for Coach Van Horn and staff to get these guys to bond as quick as they did and like each other. You're spending so much time with these guys on the road, and that's your life. So these guys have really bonded together. They like playing with each other, and it shows on the field. So that's been the biggest thing with Coach Van Horn is the consistency in what he expects and the level of expectation. He's kicked many of top 50 recruits to the curb after their first fall on campus because they weren't a right fit. He's turned down guys in the transfer portal that could have put up All-American type numbers because they weren't the right fit. So that's been the biggest thing, and hopefully they'll take it a step further this year.
Kevin Bohannon joining us again. Read all of his stuff at HawgSports, HAWGsports.com, where we're 60% off right now. And that offer ends June 10th, Tuesday at 11 o'clock Central Daylight Time. So we had a question from Chad Razorback on HawgSports. He asked about, reseeding and everything, which you pretty much covered. Do you like the format in the College World Series of kind of going back to the regional style and then kind of the super regional style?
I do, and this is why, because it shows the depth of a team. On any given day, and quoting the movie, any given Sunday, I know that was football, but if you just had one game to win, Murray State can beat LSU. Murray State can beat Arkansas. You throw your best guy against Arkansas's best guy, and then they have a bad day. That's baseball. But the NCAA wanted to make sure you're testing the depth and the intestinal fortitude of a team over the course of 2 weeks. So they space it out. You roll through. If you go 3-0, so Arkansas has played 5 games so far. They're 5-0. You win. You go 3-0 again. That puts you in the College World Series Championship Series. Then you got to win 2 out of 3. I was a proponent when they went from just bracket A, bracket B, and then you play a ball game on Sunday on the weekend, and then that's the winner. I was a proponent of going best 2 out of 3 in that aspect. You're starting to see a lot of high schools outside of Arkansas, of course, that are going to that format. So Texas, for example, their high school playoffs take 4 or 5 weeks because you're playing the best 2 out of 3 on a weekend. So that tests the overall strength of a team and not just maybe a one-off. So you can lose a game and then come back on, just like Arizona and North Carolina this weekend. North Carolina was the team on the other side of the bracket that I was worried about. They have the talent, they have pitching, their offense is deep, they play really good defense. They beat Arizona 18-2. Then they lost 10-8, 4-3. That's what happens in baseball. So you can't celebrate a College World Series national championship after you win game 1 of the super regional. So I like the format. It tests how strong the team is. At the end of the day, usually the best team at that point wins.
Kevin, do you like Arkansas to win this? If you were putting odds on it, what would you give Arkansas? And I'm curious to know who your number 2 team is, and it might be LSU, but they also have the toughest road because they got to play Arkansas.
Yeah,
so maybe it's not.
Yeah, at this point, the way Arkansas played this past weekend, they're my odds-on favorite to win it. I'd put them probably, with the field the way it is, and having to win, 5, 6, possibly 7 games, you put them probably about 200-1 at that point. And going into the College World Series, or going into the NCAA playoff and tournament, I saw them at 450, 400, with LSU being the favorite at that point. LSU has shown some kinks in the armor over the last couple of weekends. West Virginia kind of got to them in that game 1. West Virginia scored 9 on Saturday and then 5 again yesterday. So 14 runs over 2 games. It shows a little bit kink in the armor. And then what Little Rock did at the regional down there. So LSU is not the powerhouse they have been in the past. I don't think this is not LSU of 2 years ago when Paul Skeens was on the mound and Dylan Cruz was out there. That was one of the most talented teams of the past 15, 20 years in college baseball. This is not that LSU team. They're very beatable, and Arkansas can do it. So after those 2 teams, you really kind of have to look at an Arizona or UCLA at that point, maybe even Coastal Carolina. I group those 3 right together because they're so similar in the way their hitters approach the game and then the way they use their pitching staffs.
So you told me earlier after the Murray State Duke game, which that's scheduled for, is it 7 o'clock? I don't know if that's Eastern time or Central.
I think it's 7 Eastern. Yep.
7 Eastern. Yeah, it says all times are Eastern. Okay, so 6 o'clock Arkansas time. So after this game is completed, we should know the schedule. We're thinking it's going to be Saturday and either 1 or 6. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, the reason, and it goes back to the super regionals, Tennessee did not get an extra day because they played on Monday, guys. Just for our listeners out there, know they were like, hey, they're giving them an extra day rest. No, the right side of the bracket or the bottom side of the bracket, that's where seeds 3, 6, 2, and 7. So if everything would have worked out right and Texas, Georgia, LSU, and Arkansas would have all gotten to the College World Series, that's the bottom half of the bracket or the right side of the bracket, depending on what you look at. Because sometimes they just put 32 on each side, then they come in together. So the right side of the bracket or the bottom side started their super regionals on a Saturday. They were Saturday through Monday. That's to go with the schedule of the College World Series. So the left side or top half of the bracket started on Friday. They will play their College World Series games on Friday. Arkansas is the 3 seed, so they are at the bottom of the right side, which says 6 p.m. to me. That's the way I've read it, and I've asked a couple of people, but it's the NCAA and the College World Series. They could change it up at the last moment and say, hey, you're going to play at 1. But if I'm a money man, I put LSU and Arkansas at prime time on ESPN, 6 p.m. Saturday.
I think so too. Yeah. All right, Kevin, anything to add before we cut you loose?
No, stay tuned to HawgSports this week. We got a lot of good stuff. Talked with Nate Thompson earlier this year. Right time to come out with that article and talk about that offense and what they've done this season, breaking records left and right. We'll have a lot of good stuff this week on HawgSports.com.
All right. Appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Trey.
Kevin Bohannon does a great job for us at HawgSports, HawgSports.com. We're going to switch right now to Danny West. Danny has been traveling. He was at Arkansas's camp this weekend. Obviously, Arkansas had a ton of visitors come in. We're going to talk to him about some of the things that happened there. Danny.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Danny.
Hey, we got some breaking news here. We're going to jump right into it today, Biddy. Got 2 new commitments to tell everybody about.
Oh, wow.
Just happened within the last few minutes. Didn't want to throw off Kevin and bother you there, but do have 2 new commitments. Want to say Blair Irvin was first. He's a wide receiver out of Bentonville. Visited last weekend, took his official at Arkansas, told us he was still going to visit USF and Kansas State. We know USF, obviously, Cody Burns. You remember that throwback?
Yeah.
From way back. He was recruiting him to South Florida. Kansas State, obviously, a local school, has really kind of made Blair, we're going to call him Trey as well. He prefers Trey here, Trey. So we'll go with Trey Irvin. Kansas State kind of made him a priority early. We've seen the Wildcats come into Arkansas, here in the last couple of classes and try to sneak out a couple of guys. I thought maybe they might have a dark horse shot at Trey Irvin here, but Arkansas went ahead and sealed the deal. And the second commitment just minutes ago, Trey Biddy, it's a pretty big one here. Dalen Green out of Quincy, Florida. We've got him listed as a linebacker, 6'1", 210. We're going to call him a hybrid, maybe a nickel spot, maybe somebody for that hog position for you, Trey Biddy. But 6'1", 210. We've got him graded at 87, 57th linebacker in the country. Dalen Green, he had a couple of crystal ball predictions to go to Florida State. Visited there, or was expected to visit there this coming weekend. Arkansas, of course, goes ahead, gets him on campus this past weekend, and wrapped it up. Trey Biddy, that's a pretty good get right there. He also had a few other offers: Louisville, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, West Virginia was up there for Dalen Green. So kicking it off with commitments number 18 and 19 here for the show today, Biddy.
Well, Danny, do I need to cut you
out, man?
Yeah, do I need to cut you loose and we can just bring you back here in a little bit?
It's whatever you want to do.
Let's do that. I've got a few football questions queued up. If you want to just text me when you're ready to hop back on,
that'll work.
And we'll let you
right now.
Yeah, blast all that out and send the newsletter and text alert, all that good stuff.
Yes, sir. Gotcha.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you in a little bit, Danny.
That'll work. See you.
All right. So, everybody, Danny West with a little bit of breaking news. We're going to let him get to that because we gotta get it out for the subscribers. Got to get the content out and make sure everybody sees it. So it's always fun when you get a little bit of breaking news on your live show. So I've got a couple of football questions. If you got any football questions you'd like me to answer while Danny is dealing with that, then I'll be happy to do that. Just get in the comments and we'll get to them. I've got a few on HawgSports right now on the Razor's Edge message board. Trey, are you more concerned? This is from C. Shane 44. Trey, are you more concerned about the defense or more optimistic about the offense? That's a good question because I am optimistic about the offense. I don't know that I'm more optimistic about the offense than I am concerned about the defense. Okay, so let's break it down and maybe a lot of times when I'm asked questions and stuff, like when I'm doing drive time with Randy and stuff, I'll figure out the answer as I talk about it. So let's see how this goes. Offensively, obviously, Dalen Green in year 2. That's a plus in Bobby Petrino's system. Better offensive line. There's no doubt in my mind that they've gotten better on the offensive line. How much better remains to be seen. Wide receiver, it's a different group of wide receivers. It's a smaller group, okay? I do think that these are guys that can get open and catch the ball. It's just, is there a playmaker? You got to have playmakers in the SEC. Dalen can't be the only one, but I think he's going to be one. And that includes tight end. I think Rohan Jones is going to be a good addition. I just don't know how good yet. Running back, I think they're in pretty good shape. I like the 2 running backs, the 2 main guys, Mike Washington, Braylon Russell. And if Dalen can stay healthy, I like him. And again, the offensive line to me is a lot better. Throwing it over to defense, linebackers in pretty good shape. I wouldn't mind having seen one more guy that I really, really like, but we'll see on the the transfer portal additions from April. But you got Sorian Dix back. You've got Brad Shaw, who Bradley Shaw, is that right? Am I saying that right? Why am I thinking that's wrong? Shaw. I think you've got 3 really good linebackers there, and then maybe some good young guys. Like Tavian Wallace, for example. Secondary gives me some questions because, I like that they brought in a lot of guys. Like, they didn't just go and say, here's a guy to fill in this spot. He's really highly regarded. He's going to fill in here. They brought in a lot of guys. They brought in, Jordan Young, Kenai Walker, Keyshawn Davila, Julian Neal, all to play that corner spot. Maybe Neal plays nickel. Who knows how that shakes out? And then, safety, they brought in Caleb Wood and Quintavious Scandrett, brought in a couple of guys that I like, guys that have played a lot of football, guys that have started, at their previous institutions. And then Keyshawn Davila, of course, is the number 1 ranked junior college cornerback in the country. So to me, they they added a lot of competition back there. And I'll also add this. I really like Marcus Woodson. Like, I think he's a really good coach. I think he's well liked by the players, and he's in charge of that secondary. He took over the secondary that was dead last in the country in passing yards allowed, and they had a significant improvement in year 2. Last year, they dipped again. They weren't as bad by any stretch, by about 50 yards per game, but they still dipped last year. A lot of that was given up, like in the the Ole Miss game. There's probably 2 games worth of yardage in that one. Maybe they got a little bit better in the second half of the season after that Ole Miss game, third of the season. But I still have some concerns there because I just don't know. There's like a lot of thinking that they have made good improvements. Now, is there an NFL guy in the secondary? I don't know. Maybe Selman Bridges. He's awful young. Maybe Larry Worth. So that brings us to the defensive line, and that's the biggest area of concern for me. I just don't see like a lot of future NFL talent. I don't see a lot of studs. Now, I think Danny Saili is maybe the most improved player on the defense. 50 pounds, down to 325 from 375, quick. What I noticed about Saili, because I would watch it, I was like, man, he's having a really good spring. And so one day I just focused on it. I just watched Saili firing off the ball, getting off the line, faster than any other defensive tackle. Shows a lot of punch, like just in the drills they're doing, where they have the dummies, like the sound that it makes when Saili hits it was a little different than everybody else. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people and have a good year. You also have Cam Ball coming back. Those 2 guys, Ian Gerfard, how good is Ian Gerfard? At 389, down to 382. I think the goal's about 370, but still, can he give you 35 or 40 snaps a game at that weight? Quality snaps. David Oki, I believe, to me I think he's listed at 6'2". I think he's a little short. He's not exceedingly big, but he was banged up a good part of spring. Is Caleb Bell ready as a freshman? Probably not in the SEC. So those are my concerns more than anything. I want to see 5 defensive tackles. And then they brought in the guy from UT, Permian Basin also, which is a Division II school, who's 6'4", 275. Frank, it starts with an M. I haven't got it down yet. But do they have 5 defensive tackles? Because you need 5. Last year they were pretty lucky health-wise. Now, Cam Ball had the shoulder, the elbow injury all throughout the season, had off-season surgery. But they got pretty lucky from an injury standpoint last year. The year before, they were about as deep at defensive tackles I've seen, but they had a guy or 2 missing every single week, but they were able to handle it because of that. This year, I just worry about the numbers. What if they have an injury? Like, what if Cam Ball goes down for a little bit? That to me is scary. And the same thing for a defensive end. Quincy Rhodes, like, to me, he's by far and away your best defensive end. Charlie Collins, I still think has got to get bigger. Like, to me, for a guy his size, the size that he was at in the spring, he ought to be zipping past people as a pass rusher. And I didn't really see that. So to me, like, he needs to get a little bit stronger, get a little bit bigger. But those 2 guys are both very highly regarded players. I mean, Collins was like 65 nationally coming out of high school in the class of 24. Rhodes was, I think, 184, 185 nationally. Coming out in 23. So both those guys are in-state guys, very highly recruited. But again, I just wonder like about the depth overall. And is Charlie Collins ready to be a starter, So that's my biggest concern. So I would say maybe I'm more concerned about the defense just because there's so much unknown, with the secondary, with the defensive line. Those are my concerns. It might be a little scary if something happens at linebacker. Guys get banged up. Like, you can count on pretty much having a guy beat up for a significant part of the season on every level of the defense. Because you can look out there and say, oh, that's a good 11. Well, that's not going to be the 11 by midseason. It's just not. C. Shane 44 also asks, I know Petrino is not known for being up-tempo, but do you think we could see a ball control offense to take pressure off the defense? I think a lot of coaches have said this, but having a tempo-based offense means sometimes you can go fast, sometimes you can go slow, because you can have up-tempo, you can have down-tempo, I guess. But no, that's not really Petrino's style, is it? It's not his style to, like, did that happen with Willie Robinson's defense, some people will be like, yeah, I'd take some of those Willie Robinson defenses now. But no, it's not that Petrino is up-tempo either. I mean, he's still one of the few offensive coordinators in college football that will huddle. Like, it's not an up-tempo spread offense. It has spread elements. It has power run game elements, but they huddle generally. So, I mean, I think the question is, like, sometimes if you're throwing the ball a lot, you're put at high risk of 3 and outs and getting off the field quick and putting your defense out there. But I wouldn't say he's known for being up-tempo. All right, let's see we got Danny back on. Let me answer this one last question from Raw Hog. Trey might not be able to answer this, and it's way too early, but what 3 coaches would you realistically be interested in replacing Pittman? I hate firing Pittman in June, but I will say I really like Sumrall at Tulane, Jeff Traylor at UTSA. I mean, Chadwell, obviously, at Liberty. Are those my 3 that I would say are way up there? Maybe. Womack, maybe, now at Alabama. I don't know. Those are a few off the top of my head. Maybe I'll get into that a little bit more and talk about some of my top candidates. But let's bring Danny West in. Appreciate the questions, guys. And if we got any more popping up, we'll get to those as well. Danny, how's it going?
Hey, didn't we just do this?
We did. You got the content out?
Got it out, man. Got it out. Sorry about that. It was a mess. I'll leave it at that. It was a mess. But yeah, 2 new commitments to start Monday. Really wasn't expecting that today, but I take that back. I probably wasn't expecting Dalen Green today. I felt like Trey Irvin. We're gonna start calling him Trey Irvin here. I'm gonna get away from Blair. I believe he prefers Trey. And last weekend, Trey, I felt like he might have had a shot. An in-state kid nearby from Bentonville. That's one you probably want to push and get on board, don't you? Early in the summer, so probably makes a lot of sense to get him on board. But Dalen Green, man, I'm sitting here still trying to process it. That happened quick. I was not able to speak with him after his visit, so I really, honestly didn't know where it was headed. And so that's a really good pickup there. But I heard you talking about the defense. That's one that you feel good about. Anytime you can go down into the Panhandle or anywhere down in that area, in the extreme southeast, and pull out a guy with this amount of offers, I think you got to feel pretty good about that. So that's enough about those 2. I reckon, Trey, you probably want to hear about these visitors.
I want to mention something real quick, Danny. So I got to mute you real quick to show this.
All right.
So this is the text alerts. So Danny just sent these out, obviously, right after these commitments. I just want to tell people, like, if you haven't signed up for our breaking news text alerts, like, I don't know why that's hard for me to, like, my camera's way out there. But all this says is Arkansas has landed a commitment from 2026 LB Caleb Gordon of Gastonia, North Carolina, Ashbrook. And there's a link to read more on the article. And right under it says text stop to end. All you have to do is text stop. This is how you unsubscribe. The next one is Blair Urban, the Bentonville wide receiver. And then Quincy, Blair Urban and Quincy, Florida safety, Dalen Green. Text 2 to stop. So Danny sent these out, this one on Tuesday with Caleb Gordon, this one today on the 2 latest commitments. And if you could see, there's one on Monday, June 2nd. So it's not like you're getting hammered with text messages. You're getting breaking news, commitments, transfer portal news, schedule news, injury news. Those are the types of things. No spam on this. And all you have to do is go to HawgSports, and you can scroll and see where it signs up. Sign up for breaking news text alerts. I mean, it's easy. And if you don't like it, you text stop to end. It takes as long as it takes to enter your phone number. That's it. and you can sign up for breaking news text alert. So if you haven't done that already, like, why wouldn't you do that? It's one of the better features we offer, I think. And it's not like you're just getting hammered with stuff. All right, let's bring Danny back on here.
Threw that in there.
Danny, nobody could hear what you were saying if you were talking, by the way.
Oh, no, I was not.
So
good plug there on the text alerts. That's a handy little deal, man.
It is. Like,
there's no reason not to have that.
Right. When the baseball game gets the schedule gets announced for Arkansas LSU, which again we're thinking Saturday, probably 6 o'clock. When all that gets announced, we'll send a text alert. Like, it's easy. It's a great feature. So what else happened over the weekend, Danny? I know there was a lot of other visitors besides the ones that just committed.
Sure. Yeah, we'll start at the top. The highest rated, Tylen Wilson. Still not sure where that one's headed. I think they feel good about it, though. Just talking to people on Arkansas side, 6'3", 172, 4-star safety out of Pascagoula, Mississippi. Just went through there last week, coming back from vacation. But Tylen Wilson's big-time kid, probably the headliner. I'm going to mess this up, Trey Biddy. Ben Mubenja.
Oh, you got it. It's perfect.
He came over from Buford, Georgia. That's pretty good high school. 6'5", 280. We've still got him listed as an edge. We're going to get that changed this week because he's very much an offensive lineman now. We're not sure if he's going to play tackle or inside at the next level, but very much an offensive lineman. One of the most intriguing prospects. You would really enjoy this kid, Trey. He and his family came over from the Congo in 2017. And in 6 months, they mastered the English language. No accent, no nothing. Just sounds like they've been speaking English forever. So a really, really bright kid. Probably, like I said on the board, if this kid 10 years from now, we look up on Monday Night Football and he's saying his name, starting left guard for somebody, you're going to be like, man, all the signs were there. Soccer player, brand new to football, 6'5", 280, played D-line, switched O-line. Extremely bright, extremely athletic. We've got him as a mid-range 3-star. You hear my excitement about Big Ben. I think he's I would buy all the stock in the world, as Brett Bielema would say. So we talked about Dalen Green. We've got him as an athlete. Call him a linebacker. Call him a hybrid. Whatever you want. That's a solid pickup. Kamayan Henderson. We've got him at 6'3", 190. I believe he's 6'4", Trey. If you told me 6'5", I might be willing to believe it. Huge wide receiver. You look at the production at Carthage, Texas, one of the best programs in the country. He had 64 catches, 18 touchdowns, went over 1,000 yards last year. He's in the middle of a summer tour that includes TCU, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Kansas State. Now, you see that and you go TCU's the nearby team, probably best chance to keep him at home, but man, there's not a ton of competition there that just blows you away, is there? So I think Arkansas is in a sneaky good spot. Of course, they've already got Prevost out of Texarkana. Now you pick up Blair at the wide receiver spot. Still feeling good about 4-star Chase Campbell from last week. Now you throw in Kamayan Henderson. Can they get him? And, if they do, I think you would have to wrap it up at 4. That would be a really good number for the wide receiver group. Jaden Hill, another interesting prospect, committed to Mississippi State almost a year ago, just a few days shy of 1 year. Kid out of Tupelo, Mississippi. A lot of Mississippi on here, Trey. 6 foot, 220, running back. He's yoked up, kind of looks like, I don't know, maybe Raleigh, back a few years ago, just yoked up, stocky, really good-looking kid. Jaden, JJ Hill, he goes by JJ. He's kind of it's an interesting one because I kind of felt like maybe he's just doing Pittman a favor because Pittman visited his school, in the contact period. Maybe he's just going to go show Arkansas some love. But now we find out he's also taking a look at Auburn, also going to visit Tennessee. So this thing could be more wide open than we anticipated. And if so, Arkansas is far from having a clear-cut favorite, I guess is my point, at the running back spot. So he could be up there, could be a name we're talking about for a while. Javonte Smith out of Tennessee, Jackson Northside. We've got him as a receiver. We're going to call him a corner now. He's 6 foot, 170, a little bit light in the britches, but I think they could put it on him. And we've got him graded as an 86. He's also going to visit Tennessee later this month and West Virginia. So a lot of competition there. Missouri's up there as well for Javante. Hugh Smith, offensive tackle commitment, one of 4 for Eric Mateos. He was back on campus this weekend, and I'll wrap up with Cameron McGee, another Georgia kid out of Grayson High School, Loganville, Georgia. You're familiar, Trey Biddy. 6'3", 330. I would believe it. I think the 6'3" checks out. I don't know, 330. I would, 315 to 320. I would believe it. So really big kid there, and I think they're in a really good spot with Cam McGee at the moment. Auburn has offered, will not be getting a visit, but Purdue and SMU appear to be your top competition there, which would make you feel pretty good about things coming off of what seemed like a really promising visit. So keep an eye on Deke Adams trying to get that 3rd defensive tackle commitment. No stars there yet. Is kind of a trend, right, Trey? We're not used to seeing 4 and 5 stars at that D tackle position, but filling up with what looks like quality 3-star guys.
Danny, what do you think about this House settlement? What are your thoughts? And obviously, there's some news about Tennessee legislature, having conflicting rules and stuff, and the thoughts are that other states are going to follow suit, and it's not going to mean anything. But what do you think about the potential for balance with this new House settlement? And
I'm all for balance. I think it's going to be a mess to try to get there. I think you probably know the answer I'm going to give you. We're probably going to see a lot of lawsuit type of attempts, and it's going to be a mess. But ultimately, buddy, I think we're making strides. It's easy to sit back and keep saying, oh, it's ruined forever. They've ruined it for me. I'm not interested anymore. But I tell you, you're one season away from being interested again. So
yeah,
I think
Ole Miss fans, you think they're interested?
That's right. They love checking recruiting rankings every week.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think it'll get back there eventually for Arkansas as well. And to answer your question more directly, I think they're making improvements. I try to be more optimistic nowadays, and I think they're trying. Now, it's going to be a mess. You can't just snap your fingers and it's going to be perfect and smooth again. But I think we're moving in the right direction. Going to take a little time, but man, it just seemed like such a power shift. It was an overcorrection in my estimation, Trey, is what happened. It was players deserve so much. We absolutely agree with that. And then we shifted all the power to the players, and it made no common sense whatsoever. So I think we're trending. I think it's starting to swing back towards common sense, common ground, and that's where it's ultimately going to settle. Now, again, I don't think it's going to be a perfect product. Still a long way to go, but I'm excited about where it's headed, because there for a little while they were losing me too, buddy. It was not going great. So I'm excited about common sense working its way back into college sports.
Danny, this is from Chad Razorback. He says, Do you think high school recruiting will ever go back to being as important for Arkansas as it used to be if Pittman ever gets a couple years of cushion and not always in need to win now mode? Or is the portal just the new way forward for Arkansas? And that's a good point, because Pittman doesn't have any time to invest in high-profile high school guys that are going to be developed in the system over a couple of years, because the last couple of years he's had to win right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, here's the unknown of it. At what rate do transfers slow down once the new rules are in place and you shorten that window? I think that's the question ultimately that Arkansas has got to kind of sit back and wait and figure out, because we're not sure how much that number is going to shrink, right? But it's going to shrink. You're going to have cases where guys finally sit back and take a realistic snapshot of things and goes, hey, maybe the grass ain't greener, and I'm not going to make an extra $1,500, and I've only got 10 days to make all these life-changing decisions. I think that's going to cut down quite a bit. So, there's a lot of moving parts to it, man, but in my opinion, Trey, for where it's at right now, and I think I understand what Chad's talking about, given the current system, the current rules, where we're at right now today, I don't know that, unless it changes drastically, I don't know that we'll ever see high school recruiting be as important or as entertaining for Chad or whoever else might be following. But for the meantime, that transfer portal sure makes for an entertaining substitute, in my opinion. People still get fired up about it. It's just a different version, and one that I think is the quicker route to helping Arkansas. That's just my opinion.
So, Danny, what else coming up?
Yeah,
what we got?
Yeah, in addition to house settlement and everything else going on.
How about on campus?
Yeah, coming up this week, another busy week, a lot of traveling. So sorry about that, but I'll be back later this week. We've got another official visit weekend. I'm trying to bring up names right now. I know it's kind of more of the in-state and already committed type weekend. I want to say there's 5 committed guys coming in this weekend. Ashley Walker, Carnell Jackson, Cade Bush, Robert Haynes, the 4th, and Javion Martin, the tight end commitment. So that's 5 of the 11. You got a couple of in-state notables coming in this weekend. 4-star Anthony Kennedy. Trey, we've talked about him. Was committed to Missouri out of Little Rock Central, formerly of Maumelle. 6'3", 334. We've got him graded as a 90. Really important in-state kid. And Arkansas is probably heading in a good spot there, in my opinion. But we'll see after next weekend. Braxton Lindsey, linebacker up at Rogers, 6'2", 225. Probably a guy we should talk a little bit more about. He's created quite the level of interest. Picked up a lot of offers this offseason. Missouri's up there for him. Baylor, Miami, Michigan State, K-State, Utah. The list goes on. People can check it out on HawgSports. But really a sneaky good in-state prospect there in Braxton Lindsey. And then got a few others coming in from around the region. We'll get into it later in the week. But outside of that, got another camp on the 14th. What day is that this week, Trey? My dates are
14th.
That's a Saturday. Got a really good camp coming on Saturday. And then next Wednesday, I want to tell you about a camp coming up on Arkansas's campus. That's supposed to be their best one of the summer, the 18th, which will be next week. We'll double up with a lineman camp and a really big 7-on-7 pool. Got maybe 15, 20 of the best teams from around the state coming to play 7-on-7, be able to get eyes on a lot of prospects that day next week. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. In addition to that, trying to maybe sneak up north and check out some baseball, Trey. How about the Hogs?
How about them?
How about them?
All right, brother.
Yeah, man. Sorry for the intermission there.
Yeah, don't apologize for commitments.
You got it. We'll see you next time.
All right, talk to you later. All right, everybody, that's Danny West. Again, you can follow Danny at Danny West 24/7 on X and read all of his content at HawgSports. He is the HawgSports recruiting analyst and obviously does a great job for us and has been with us for a number of years. So we had a question just about like possible coaches if like things didn't work out with Pittman. And I mentioned John Sumrall, who was at Troy and then at Tulane. He's way up there for me. Jeff Traylor. Jeff didn't have the season last year that you would want, but what he's done at UTSA has been pretty outstanding. Jamie Chadwell, Rhett Lashley would be a name that would pop up. G.J. Kinney. I mentioned Kane Womack, who was at South Alabama, and now he's at Alabama as defensive coordinator. I remember when he was at Arkansas, he played fullback here. His dad was a coach here. I don't know, just a few names that popped up. Cliff Kingsbury. I'm looking at an old list that I put together. Some interesting names. All right. I'll tell you, so I had this put together in 2023. Just getting it ready, just like compiling names because you never know what's going to happen. You always have to have a board ready. You know, kind of like Sam Pittman right now. He's got a list of potential assistant coaches, potential offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, because you always have to have a list. But I've had that list kind of end updating it, you know, if anything ever happens. But the hope has got to be, to me, that Sam Pittman wins a bunch of games and keeps this thing going, because the way things are set up right now, especially with the recruiting calendar, you're looking at a really tough season if you were to have change, and that's just the way things are. So, like, to me, like, if Arkansas ever did have a coaching change, if that calendar shifts to where the portal opens in January, that would be a game changer. That would be a game changer for Arkansas. The way it lays out now, you're looking at, you know, losing your recruiting class, having to sign players in the late signing day, which is not as good a time to sign, and having a huge amount of attrition with your current roster because they all don't know what to expect. They're out on the free market, and not being able to bring in guys in that early transfer portal window, which is so crucial to fill in the spots. So it's kind of a double whammy. Like, you're already having a lack of success, your coach gets fired, and your roster completely gets destroyed right out of the gate. So, I've said before, like, I think that possibly plays a role in, why Sam Pittman was retained last year. I think that, the uncertainty and the expectation that you're going to have, revenue sharing, $20.5 million, carved out of your budget. And, where do you spend money? Like you see a lot of schools around the country that might have fired their coach that didn't. I think the Arkansas State game plays a role in that. You do not want to lose to Arkansas State in week 2 because your roster is depleted because you had a coaching change. Maybe that played a role into it. But you are also caught in a cycle with Pittman where you can't, he can't risk putting all his eggs in developing high school talent, which they say is the best way to do things. I'm not sold on that. I just think it's Georgia and Alabama and programs like that have been doing that and have had success anyway, that have the luxury of developing through high school. Arkansas, recruiting is a little bit different for Arkansas because they are more remote, don't have as much talent in the backyard. So the transfer portal to me is a good thing for Arkansas. But with Pittman, like, there's not many choices but to invest your funds in experienced older players who can come in and help you win right now. And that's what we've seen the last couple of years because Pittman has to win right now. So anyway, a lot of factors kind of playing into that. In past years, you never would have seen a coach retained after a 4-win season and a 6-win season. I say that Houston Nutt was retained, but Houston had a little bit more maybe to fall back on at the time. All right. Let's see if we got any more questions here from the comment section. Who said it to Omaha to watch Van Horn's first natty? What ways do you see programs manipulating the new NIL agreement? Well, I mentioned, what Tennessee has done that just kind of flies in the face of everything. Like, it's the NCAA's fault that we're in the situation that we're in because they weren't proactive. They didn't say, okay, we're going to pay play. Like, if they'd have come out with this revenue sharing model originally, like right out of the gate, we're doing revenue sharing. If they'd have come out with that model, then there wouldn't have been all this NIL type stuff. I think that they would have gotten ahead of it enough to where people like in Congress and stuff wouldn't look at it and say like, well, these athletes are being taken advantage of and they should be able to earn, all this money through this and that. And then the rise of collectives and all this kind of stuff, all that stuff probably wouldn't have happened if they had just said, we're going to figure out a way, to pay these guys. If that had happened, then we wouldn't be in the utter chaos that we're in right now. But hopefully it's turning around. I'm not a fan of, obviously I want people to be able to make money but I also know that people aren't being paid money that they're worth. Like a freshman quarterback who's never done anything isn't worth $1 million, and if you want to pay them through revenue sharing to get them here, then that's fine. But if you want to pay them through NIL to get them here, then that's going to come under more scrutiny from the clearinghouse, Deloitte accounting. There will be more scrutiny around that. Now, on the other side of it, Tennessee saying, hey, people can make whatever they want. The thing of it is, this whole thing is under the guise of the word or the term NIL, and that's not really what it is. It's not name, image, and likeness. It is straight pay for play. Like we're paying people to go to a school and endorse a product, but make no mistake that like endorsing the product is very secondary. It's thirdary, if that's a thing. Thirdary, is that a word? Look it up in the dictionary. If it's not, then I've coined that word. not to use without express written permission of Trey Biddy, HawgSports. Okay, let's see if we got any more questions before we call it. Hey, I wanted to mention this too. If you're interested in advertising with HawgSports on this show or on the Walk and Talk, anything like that, let me know. Hit me up. Shoot me a DM on X. It's probably the best way. You can email me at trey@hawgsports.com, but sometimes I miss emails because I get too many of them. So you can DM me on X. You can shoot me a DM on 24/7 Sports. A lot of different ways you can get a hold of me. While I'm looking for questions, any last questions, be sure to give us a thumbs up or a like on whatever platform you're watching. And leave us a review. All right, where is my link? All right, here we go. All right, I think we're pretty good. I think we're caught up. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for joining me. Thanks to Kevin Bohannon for his insight on Arkansas baseball. Danny West for all the recruiting updates. Appreciate all you guys for your questions. We really appreciate all of it. And thanks for your support. Thanks for supporting everything we do at HawgSports, HawgSports.com. I've been doing this now for 22 years. Is that right? Holy cow. 22 since 2003. That's when I started. I was hired in 2002. Yeah. 22 years of doing this. I think I just hit my 20-year anniversary on Drive Time Sports also, which is wild. All right, everybody. Appreciate you for joining me. Sign up at HawgSports, 60% off until Tuesday night, June 11th. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.